7 people knew Jon Snow was actually Aegon Targaryen, the rightful heir to the Iron Throne. And one of them died keeping that secret locked away for over 20 years. For most of Game of Thrones, Jon Snow believed he was nobody special. Just a bastard son trying to find his place in the world. But the truth? He was the most important person in Westeros, and a handful of people knew it all along. So let's break down exactly who knew Jon's real identity, how they found out, and why they kept quiet. Ned Stark, the man who carried the weight. Let's start with the obvious one. Ned Stark knew from the very beginning because he was there when Jon was born. But here's what makes this absolutely heartbreaking. Ned Stark, the most honorable man in Westeros, had to lie every single day for 16 years. He had to watch his wife Catelyn treat Jon with coldness and contempt. He had to let the entire realm think he cheated on his new bride during the war. All to keep one promise to his dying sister. When Bran's vision shows us the Tower of Joy, we see Lyanna Stark bleeding out after giving birth, whispering her final words to Ned. She makes him promise to protect her son from Robert Baratheon, who would have killed any Targaryen heir without hesitation. Ned agrees, and in that moment, he takes on a burden that would define the rest of his life. Think about how crushing this was for Ned. His honor meant everything to him. Yet he had to stain that honor to protect his nephew. He couldn't even tell his own wife the truth. Why? Because if Catelyn knew, she'd technically be committing treason by hiding a Targaryen heir. Ned loved her too much to put that burden on her, even though it meant she'd resent him forever for supposedly cheating on her. In the books, Ned never thinks of Lyanna as being Jon's mother in his internal thoughts, which shows just how deep this secret went. He couldn't even let himself think about it. And when Robert Baratheon, his best friend, asked him about Jon's mother on their way to King's Landing, Ned shut down the conversation immediately. He said her name was Willa and refused to discuss it further. That's how serious he was about protecting Jon. The saddest part? Ned promised Jon that the next time they saw each other, he'd tell him the truth about his mother. But Ned lost his head at the end of Season 1, and that conversation never happened. He died with the secret, taking it to his grave rather than risk Jon's life. Howland Reed, the silent witness. Howland Reed was with Ned at the Tower of Joy when everything went down. He's actually the one who saved Ned's life during the fight with Arthur Dayne, the legendary Sword of the Morning. Without Howland, Ned never would have made it into that tower, and Jon's secret would have died right there. Now, here's where it gets interesting. Howland Reed never appears in Game of Thrones' show present-day storyline, but he's mentioned several times. George R.R. Martin has said that Howland won't be a point-of-view character in the books because he knows too much. That's a huge deal. The author himself confirmed that this guy is sitting on massive secrets. In the books, Howland was the one who pulled Ned away from Lyanna's body after she died. He had to have understood what was happening. Ned left that tower with a newborn baby, and Lyanna was dead. Even if Ned didn't spell it out, Howland would have figured it out. The story everyone believed was that Rhaegar kidnapped and raped Lyanna, so finding Lyanna with Rhaegar's baby would have been pretty obvious. What's remarkable is that Howland kept this secret for over 20 years. He sent his children, Mira and Jojen, to help Bran Stark, but he never breathed a word about Jon. That's loyalty on another level. He could have used this information for political gain, but he honored his friend Ned's wishes and stayed silent. The big question is whether Howland knew that Rhaegar was Jon's father. Did Ned tell him the full story? Or did Howland just know Lyanna was the mother? We don't have a definitive answer, but given how close Ned and Howland were, and given that they went through that battle together, it's likely Howland knew everything. The Tower of Joy Handmaidens, the Forgotten Witnesses. Here's something the show glosses over, but the books make clearer. There were handmaidens present at the Tower of Joy when Lyanna gave birth. Someone had to help with the delivery. A noble woman giving birth in a remote tower in Dorne? There had to be assistance. One of these women was likely Willa. Now, Willa's role is fascinating because she becomes Ned's cover story. When Robert asks about Jon's mother, Ned says it was Willa. And here's the thing, Willa actually went along with this story. Edric Dayne, a member of House Dayne, tells Arya that Willa was Jon Snow's mother and that she served as his wet nurse. So Willa knew the truth. She was probably there when Jon was born to Lyanna, and then she agreed to let people think she was Jon's mother. think about what that means. This woman, a servant of House Dane, took on the shame of being thought of as the woman who bedded Ned Stark and bore his bastard. That's not a small thing in Westeros. But she did it to protect Jon. The theory is that Willa was sent by Ashera Dane to the Tower of Joy to help with the birth, since Arthur Dane, Ashara's brother, was one of the Kingsguard stationed there. After Lyanna died, Ned took Jon to Starfall, House Dane's seat, to return Arthur Dane's sword. That's when Willa became Jon's wet nurse and the cover story was established. As for the other handmaiden or handmaidens, we don't know their identities. The show mentions there were 2 handmaidens present, but we never learn who the second one was. These women carried this secret to their graves, never speaking of what they witnessed in that tower. Bran Stark, the three-eyed raven. Bran is unique on this list because he didn't know about Jon's parentage through traditional means. He saw it through his green sight visions as the three-eyed raven. At the end of Season 6, Bran witnesses the events at the Tower of Joy and discovers Jon is actually Lyanna Stark's son. But Bran's knowledge goes even deeper. In Season 7, while Sam is telling him about the annulment, Bran uses his powers to see Rhaegar and Lyanna's secret wedding. He puts the pieces together and realizes Jon isn't just Rhaegar's son, he's Rhaegar's legitimate son. His birth name is Aegon Targaryen, and he has the strongest claim to the Iron Throne. Now, Bran isn't really Bran anymore at this point. He's become the three-eyed raven, this almost emotionless entity that sees all of time. But even with his transformed state, he understands the importance of this information. He knows it could change everything in Westeros. The thing about Bran is that he has access to all of history. He could have discovered this secret at any point once he gained his powers. But he doesn't reveal it until the timing is right, until Sam brings up the marriage record. That's significant because it shows that even the all-seeing three-eyed raven understands that some secrets need to be revealed carefully. Samwell Tarly, the reluctant scholar. Sam's discovery is completely accidental, which makes it kind of perfect. While at the Citadel in Season 7, Sam discovers that a High Septon annulled Rhaegar's marriage to Elia Martell and married him to someone else in secret. Actually, it's Gilly who first mentions this information while reading a diary, and Sam completely misses it because he's frustrated with the Maesters. Later, when Sam goes to Winterfell and talks to Bran, the pieces come together. Sam provides the proof that Rhaegar and Lyanna were married, which means Jon isn't a bastard at all. He's the legitimate heir to the Iron Throne. This revelation happens in Season 7, Episode 7, during the finale. What's interesting about Sam is his reaction. He's not scheming or political. He's Jon's best friend, and when he learns the truth, his first instinct is to tell Jon because Jon deserves to know. Sam doesn't think about the political implications or how this could be used for power. He just wants his friend to know who he really is. Sam's role shows how sometimes the most important discoveries come from unexpected places. All those dusty old records that the Maesters kept. One of them held the key to Jon's true identity. And it took someone as dedicated and honest as Sam to find it and understand its importance. Jon Snow himself, the last to know. Isn't it ironic that Jon Snow, the person at the center of this massive secret, was one of the last people to find out? Jon finally learns the truth in Season 8, when Sam tells him in the crypts of Winterfell. He spent his entire life believing he was Ned Stark's bastard son, an outsider, someone with no claim to anything. And then in one conversation, everything he thought he knew about himself gets turned upside down. He's not Ned's son. He's not a bastard. He's Aegon Targaryen, son of Rhaegar Targaryen and Lyanna Stark. He's the rightful heir to the Iron Throne. And the woman he's fallen in love with, Daenerys? She's his aunt. Jon's reaction to this news tells you everything about his character. He doesn't immediately try to claim the throne. He doesn't get excited about being a Targaryen. If anything, he seems conflicted and uncomfortable with the revelation. He's spent his whole life as Jon Snow, and that's who he wants to be. The tragedy is that Jon never wanted power or titles. He never asked to be Lord Commander of the Night's Watch or King in the North. And he definitely never asked to be the heir to the Iron Throne. But the truth doesn't care what you want. The characters who learned after, spreading the secret. Once Jon knows, the secret starts spreading. He tells Sansa and Arya in Season 8, swearing them to secrecy. But Sansa, seeing Jon as a better alternative to Daenerys, tells Tyrion. Tyrion then tells Varys, and suddenly the secret that was kept for over 20 years is out in the open among the nobility of Westeros. Varys is an interesting case because some fans theorize he might have suspected something all along. Varys was known for his network of spies and his ability to uncover hidden truths. But in the show, he doesn't know for certain until Tyrion tells him. Once Varys learns the truth, he immediately starts plotting to put Jon on the throne instead of Daenerys, which ultimately leads to his execution. Daenerys herself learns about Jon's heritage when Jon tells her in Season 8. Her reaction is complicated. She's shocked, she's threatened, because Jon has a better claim to the throne than she does. This revelation becomes one of the key factors that drives the wedge between them. Why did this secret matter so much? Let's zoom out for a second and understand why keeping Jon's identity secret was literally a matter of life and death. Robert Baratheon, the king, had built his entire rebellion on the story that Rhaegar kidnapped and raped Lyanna. He was obsessed with killing every last Targaryen. When King's Landing fell, Rhaegar's other children, Rhaenys and baby Aegon, were brutally murdered, and Robert felt no remorse about it. If Robert had known that Lyanna gave birth to Rhaegar's son, he would have hunted Jon down and killed him as an infant. It didn't matter that Jon was half Stark, half Ned's nephew. All Robert would have seen was Targaryen blood, and that was enough for a death sentence. Ned understood this completely. That's why he took Jon as his own, stained his honor, and never told anyone the truth. Not his wife, not his best friend, not even Jon himself. The secret had to be absolute because one slip, one moment of weakness, and Jon would have died. The bigger picture in the books. Now, here's something important. In George R.R. Martin's books, Jon's parentage hasn't been officially revealed yet. The books have been hinting at it for years through the famous R+L=J theory, but Martin hasn't confirmed it in the published material. The show ran ahead of the books and gave us the answer. This means in the books, there's potentially more to discover. Martin has said that Howland Reed won't be a POV character because he knows too much. What else does Howland know? Are there other witnesses we haven't met yet? Will the revelation play out differently? Martin actually used the question of Jon's parentage as a test for the Game of Thrones showrunners David Benioff and D.B. Weiss. Before he'd let them adapt his books, he asked them who they thought Jon's mother was. They guessed correctly, which helped convince Martin they understood his story deeply enough to adapt it. That's how central this mystery is to the entire saga. The weight of a secret. What makes Jon's parentage reveal so powerful isn't just the shocking twist. It's the human cost. Ned Stark sacrificed his honor and his marriage. Howland Reed lived with knowledge he could never share. The handmaidens at the Tower of Joy took the secret to their graves. All of these people gave up something to protect one child. And in the end, what did the revelation accomplish in the show? That's actually one of the most controversial parts of Game of Thrones' final season. Jon's Targaryen heritage created tension between him and Daenerys, but it didn't put him on the Iron Throne. He killed Daenerys to stop her reign of terror and was sent into exile. The biggest secret in Westeros, the one that people died protecting, led Jon right back to where he started, beyond the wall with the free folk. Some fans were disappointed that Jon's parentage didn't matter more in the end game. But maybe that's the point. Maybe the secret was never about Jon claiming power. Maybe it was about the people who loved him enough to protect him, regardless of the cost. Ned gave up his honor. Lyanna gave up her life. Jon just wanted to be himself, not some prophesied prince or rightful king. The story of Jon Snow's parentage is really a story about family, loyalty, and the lengths people will go to protect those they love. 7 people knew the truth before it came out. One of them, Lyanna, died giving Jon life. Another, Ned, died before he could tell Jon the truth. The rest carried the burden in silence, understanding that some secrets are worth keeping, even if it costs you everything. The next time you watch Game of Thrones or read the books, pay attention to the scenes with Ned and Jon. Knowing what Ned knew, every interaction becomes heartbreaking. When Ned promises Jon they'll talk about his mother the next time they meet, he means it. When he refuses to discuss Jon's parentage with Robert or Catelyn, you can see the weight of the secret crushing him. Jon Snow's story reminds us that our identities are shaped by the people who protect us and the choices they make. Jon became the man he was not because of his royal blood, but because of the values Ned Stark instilled in him. The secret of his birth was kept by people who understood that sometimes, the most important thing isn't who you are, but who you choose to be. And that, more than any Iron Throne or dragon or prophecy, is what makes Jon Snow's story legendary.